We got the Utah Utes. Now, granted, leave it to me to blow my wad as talking about the Soakers here as my favorite to win, but Utah certainly got quite the resume, quite the team, and realistically their schedule lines up pretty well as well. So let's jump into them. And Casey, I'll send it to you first to just kind of see, what do you think? I mean, they bring a lot of people back from an offensive perspective, but I'm interested to get your take there.
I like Utah. Look, Kyle Whittingham is a coach that I've had a ton of respect for really the last 10, 15 years, and someone that I think is truly one of the most underrated coaches in college football. I hate that he's in Ann Arbor. We'll talk a lot more about him when we do our Big Ten preview. He's now Ryan's boy, and good for Michigan to go out and replace butter knives with a real head coach who should be able to turn things around in Ann Arbor fairly quickly. That being said, from what I'm reading, I like what I'm reading about Morgan Scalley, and he's a Utah lifer. I like what they have on their roster. I really like their quarterback, Devin Dampier. I like his backup and kind of change of pace quarterback that they throw in there, and Bird Ficklin. Their running back, Wayshawn Parker. That Utah BYU game is November 7th in Salt Lake City, BYU at Utah for the Holy War. That's going to be, I think, one of the best games of the year in all of college football, not just the Big 12. But I love the Holy War. I make a point to try to watch it every year. If I don't, if Ohio State's playing at the same time, or there's another kind of top 10 matchup that is drawing my attention away from it, I try to go back and watch the highlights. But Utah, BYU, if they're both healthy, if they're both performing up to the expectations that I think a lot of people have for them this year, I think that November 7th game could basically be a de facto play-in game into the Big 12 championship. I really like what Utah has, and I'm really interested to hear if you guys are aligned with me and like what you're seeing and hearing about Utah now too.
Somewhat there with you. I do like Utah, but I just think there's a lot of unknowns. They have a first-year offensive coordinator, a first-year head coach. They lost a decent amount, transferred out. I know a couple guys followed Whittingham to Michigan, and John Henry Daly, I believe, and a stud cornerback. So they definitely lost some guys, but what they do have working for them, I think, is they have a stud QB. I really think that Devin Dampier, I think he's somewhat the only person really that is standing in the way from me going all in on BYU, like Max is Devin. I think he's really good. I think he's better than Bear. And I think he might be the difference come November 7th in the Holy War. Like you said, Casey, they have a running game. They have the fronts on the offense and defensive sides to match up with BYU. Some of the other teams in the conference just don't. And when they do, I think it could come down to quarterback play and guys on the outside who's able to make a play here or there. And when it comes down to that, I think I just like Utah a little more than BYU.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Listen, I actually am on the other side of the fence of you two on Devin Dampier. I think, yes, he's super talented. He's your prototypical college quarterback that will never make it in the NFL. Now, I know that doesn't matter for what we're talking about today, but the guy had 2,500 yards passing last year, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks. Now he ran for 835 yards and 10 touchdowns, but inconsistency with the deep ball, inconsistency with getting through progressions, doing protection commands, all these things that you kind of hear about that were holding him back. I don't know if he makes those improvements going into this year. I mean, he's been there for a couple of years now. You would think that these things are coming in. You got Bird Ficklin coming in. How are they going to use him more too, right? Like, he is obviously came out of high school playing all sorts of different positions. He's going to do the same here, line up at QB some. I'm not as sold on the Utes. I agree with Casey. The Holy War is going to be awesome. It's always a great game. It's always just a battle. Morgan Scalley, old Scallywag coming in here. Being a Ute for life and finally taking over the reins, quite frankly, it's a lot of pressure. I look at Kyle Whittingham not on the sidelines, and it's like Nick Saban not being at Alabama. It just feels weird. And frankly, I think we're about to find out is what they built because of one coach or one culture, as they like to think, right? So I think they've really got to get more out of the run game. They averaged a pretty good clip on yards per carry, and I think Wayshawn Parker ended with 4 straight 100-yard games. But at the same time, 981 rushing yards, 6 TDs. That basically tells me that Devin Dampier is doing it all. And I look at my super soakers over at BYU, and I feel like Kalani Sitake and Kelly Poppinga are really going to shut down Dampier or focus on him more and make Utah beat them other ways when they do play. So listen, the Utes are good. They bring back some folks. They've got a decent looking schedule. They're kind of rebuilding the offensive line. There's defensive line turnover. I trust the trenches, and BYU, I feel a lot more confident at BYU, especially plus 600 versus I think plus 800 for Utah. Give me the Super Soakers over Utah in the Holy War overall. I'm going to spoil my pick again. I just think that Utah comes up a little bit short, and even Texas Tech, I think will end up being better than Utah.
One thing I wanted to mention, I mentioned earlier, Texas Tech had 6 4-stars come in, and that was the most I saw of any Big 12 program. Utah had 5 4-stars leave, which was also the most I saw of any Big 12 program. And I know a couple of them were younger guys that were freshmen that came in that just transferred to Michigan. I just thought that was a lot to lose for a program like Utah that in the past has seemed to be a guy or two short here or there.
They're on the wrong side of the money in the Holy War. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think you guys both hit the nail on the head. To me, the crux of the Utah Utes this year is going to be on the line of scrimmage and what they do to replace their stud offensive tackles that both got drafted and how they rebuild that defensive line. If Scally gets that defensive line in order and they kind of shore up some of the issues that they had stopping the run last year and they find some good offensive linemen that are solid, I think Dampier and Parker can carry this team a long way and potentially beat a BYU team in Salt Lake City in November. Their toughest Big 12 road game is probably at the very end of the year against TCU. They have Houston at home. They have BYU at home. They have back-to-back games against Arizona and TCU on the road in November. So that's where their season is going to come together or fall apart, is kind of right in that Halloween, Thanksgiving era, which is where a lot of teams, their season is made.
Okay, I agree with those points you made on Utah, Casey, but